Om Shanti, and welcome to Global Harmony House on Thursday night. And if you are in the New York local area, you are probably safe at home because we have a lot of wind, we have a lot of rain, and we have a lot of absence. And so I hope you are well, hope you are doing good things, and hope you are safe and warm at home because we will still continue. We had a very powerful speaker tonight who is like the mailman. And it's no snow, no rain, no sleet, no dogs. Nothing would stop him from coming. And so Brother Tony is our speaker tonight, and he arrived and he is ready. Um, we may have to watch the titles that we put on there because I believe tonight is put a full stop. And that seems to have been misunderstood by the audience. That doesn't mean for you to stop coming here. It was just the way we had proposed that. So please don't misunderstand our titles. We don't want you to stop coming here. We want you to listen to Tony as he talks about putting a full stop. And many of you are familiar with our brother Tony. He has been a practicing Raj Yogi for many years. And I remember the beginnings of those, but I couldn't tell you how long ago it was, but it's 25, close to that. And so a lot of experience, a lot of insights, a lot of churning what we have. Some of the topics that we present are um, basic, simple things, how we think, how to be positive, but they are quite profound also. So hoping that we'll have some profundity tonight from Brother Tony, who I will invite to this stage. And as he comes up, I will disappear and we'll get things set for a incredible evening. And he's going to put a full stop around 8 o'clock, I believe, for completing this. So Tony, have a seat. I'll be right with you.
Okay, thank you. Well, like Eric said, I hope everybody is safe in their homes. It's still going to rain for a while tonight. And for those of you coming online, thank you for joining us. Today's subject, or the general theme, healing through peace, is something that really is kind of central to the way we function and to the kind of values that this organization is trying to inculcate. And I thought that I would make a parallel between physical healing and the psychic healing, because they are very connected, and the source of the healing is really the same one. So I'd like to go through kind of the process of what happens when you're hurt, when there is a wound. I have to start with one of my favorite sayings, which is from Hippocrates, and an admonition to physicians, in which he said, "Whatever you do, first do no more harm." And that to me is one of the most central sayings on anything that we do. I think it's critical for our efforts in sustainability and trying to do things that are more gentle to our environment. Whatever we do, we should not do any more harm. So the analogy that I'm using tonight is between physical and emotional and ultimately spiritual healing is when you have a wound, when you have a injury of some sort. What is always told is literally put a full stop. Don't do anything that could make it worse. You have to, if you're fallen, you have to determine whether the fall broke anything, if you have a cut or a wound or any kind of lesion in your body that needs to be looked at. You're not supposed to make it worse. The whole basis of how these things are treated is kind of let it sit and begin to look for what it is. And but first you have to stop. You can't continue moving around, you can't continue touching it or doing things to it, or you can't, it's all of that is just makes it worse. And this is very kind of commonsensical thing. And I think it's a parallel situation when the wounds are not physical, but the wounds are emotional, psychological. They basically wounds of the psyche. So when someone says something hurtful to you, when someone says something hurtful about you that you become aware, when someone indifferently says things that hurt you, I mean, there's so many ways that people can be cruel to other people. When relative, brother, a spouse, someone close to you says something to you, the first most important thing is to put a full stop. Stop thinking, stop feeling, stop everything. You have to kind of bring yourself into the moment and stop the process, because you have to look at this injury and you can't make it worse. So you have to stop and look at this injury on the side, on the outside, not on the inside. If you look at whatever, or you think of whatever has said to you from your own emotional internal state, almost invariably, you're going to make it worse. Invariably, you're going to say, this is terrible. I don't deserve this. This is cruel. And then you make it even worse when you bring your ego into it, and it becomes, how can they do this to me? So you take an injury, there may be a cut, and you start scarring yourself with it. When you start heaping and piling on all of these internal habits that we have in reacting to any kind of emotional, psychological upheaval in our lives. So putting a full stop is very, very critical, or else you're basically dealing with your injury, your hurt, your sorrow from the side of suffering, which means you're going to be weakened. You're not going to be able to actually do, first to understand it, and then to do something to really make it better. Generally speaking, when you're on the other side, when you're on the inside, I like to say, you're essentially going to be looking at from the wrong perspective. There's a term that I read recently in a book from a BK brother when he says, from Anthony Strano, he says, you have to observe, not absorb. And I thought that was really an apt metaphor. You have to observe. You put a full stop. Stop the thought. Stop any reaction. You have to basically come to the moment and sort of become silent, get your mind focused on being still. And most of you already understand that silence of the kind we're trying to promote here is not the absence of sound. Silence is something that has to do with your will, with your intentions, in which you say, I'm going to stop all this movement and for a moment, just a moment, breathe and say, okay, what exactly is going on here? So the first step when you're wounded, and we're not talking about someone coming by and saying something like you about the way you look or something you did that they didn't like. No, this is when someone actually really hurts you. And usually it's someone close to you, someone who you have some engagement with, maybe affection. Talking about those kinds of hurts. We're not talking about social intercourse. So you have to stop, put a full stop. Put a full stop to your thoughts. Put a full stop to your emotions. Put a full stop to the way you react. These are all habits that are ingrained in us. And we are reflexive. And if you have something that really has hurt you, you can't afford to be reflexive. You can't afford to make it worse. You can't afford to do more harm than the harm that was already done. So putting a full stop is very important part of the process because it permits you, once you stop, once you breathe from the insult, from the hurt, from the whatever the action was that wounded you, you put a full stop and you breathe and you say, okay, something happened. And it's the same thing in health. You put a full stop, medics come, they start looking at what's going on, they're trying to evaluating, but meanwhile, you're not supposed to move, you're not supposed to say anything, you're not supposed to be doing anything. If you try it, they'll be very, they can be very nice or they can be very difficult until you can't do that. I mean, it's depending on how serious your injury is. Except in this case, there's no medics around. There's no ambulance around. It's just you. And that is where it requires a certain level of intestinal fortitude, internal fortitude. You have to stop. Because to not stop is an indulgence. To not stop means, oh, I'm going to carry on with this and I'm going to take this dialogue that hurt me so much and I'm going to continue molding it and making part of myself. And in that process, it becomes basically absorbing it into yourself. You're not observing it, you're absorbing it. You're making it part of your own dynamic. So the first step, put a full stop. And that requires effort. It requires focus. And it requires for you to go inside of yourself and say, okay, this is not something that I need to jump at, to jump out. There is right now in the media, and one of the really very negative trends is the amount of revenge drama that is all over the media. And they have discovered, I've done scientific studies, this is not my speculation, that revenge dramas actually act on people's endorphins similar to narcotics, that watching revenge dramas engages people in a way that it pumps up certain kind of chemicals that usually come up when you have certain types of psychotropic drugs. And it gives you a kind of a hit, maybe like adrenaline. It's like a hit when you see a revenge drama. Almost everything now on TV and in movies has some level of revenge drama because it's so effective. It really engages people. On the internet, that's all they show when they show bits of movies. They show the revenge part of it. They even make little snippets of it. So revenge, and that's because revenge drama requires no thinking. I'm getting even. I'm going to go back and straighten this out. I'm going to get even. It gives you a kind of a shot. It's like a gambler, same kind of or someone that takes some substances. It has the same kind of a shot, according to the study. So that's very dangerous because you become addicted to it, which is what's happening to people that watch a lot of the media. So it's very dangerous to go into the territory of, let me react to this. Because your first action, and again, we're not talking about social intercourse, but someone actually hurting you, maybe intentionally, is for you to get even. That is going to make you feel kind of, okay, I'm doing something. But in the end, it's not going to solve the problem. It's going to make you feel worse ultimately. Personal story. I have a lot of people in my life that have had a lot of issues. And there is one young girl, my niece, actually my grandniece, who I'm trying to kind of help through a very difficult time. And I'm not the only one, but one of the things that happens, because she's in a very difficult situation, and I'm trying to help her through it as best I can, and other people are doing things that are more aggressive, and they end up making things worse. They end up alienating the people that this child is having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it seemed to me recently, I really kind of came to the conclusion that the people are reacting to this child's hurt in a way that's important for them. They're getting even. They're getting back at the people that are giving this child a hard time. But they're not really helping the child. The child is not really getting any help that way. In some ways, it's making it worse. So here is very well-intentioned people that get into the whole revenge game. And that revenge game is good for them. It gives them a little shot of endorphin or whatever it is that you feel, and it doesn't help the child. So it's very important that you do not fall into that trap when something happens. You have to stop and kind of, okay, let's assess what's going on. Let's look at it. but you have to stop. You cannot say, I'm going to go take a look at it, because then you're going to be falling in and you're going to say, okay, you know, your emotions and your whole notion of justice and revenge and for yourself or someone else is going to kick in, and it's going to cloud your judgment. You first have to stop. It's the first step in every situation, physical, emotional, psychological. That's the first step. Then once you've kind of gotten the handle of what's going on, once you've begun to see in some objective way what's the nature of the problem that you have, of the issue, of the insult, of the wound, then you have to start looking at what do you do at first? How do you stop the wound from continuing to inflict pain? So in the case of a physical wound, you have a splinter, you have a lesion, a cut, you have a shard of some sort. Maybe it's a weapon, someone struck you with a weapon, or so you need to clean, take out whatever is happening, whatever happened, whatever shard, whatever splinter, whatever happened, you need to clean the wound. Take the splinter out, take the shard out. Begin to make some sense of what the injury is and what it's the situation, how what's the nature of it. So, and that's the same analogy in terms of wounds that are made to us, in terms of people attacking us or saying things about us. You have to examine what is the nature of the wound. First of all, you have to clean it. You have to take out the splinter. So if someone says something to you that's disparaging, you have to first listen to what they say. You have to listen, not just say, this is bad. Okay, we know it's bad. They intend it to be bad, either intentionally to you or to someone else. So you're not making any judgments. If it wasn't bad, it would not be a problem. So you're not going to make judgments. You know, you're not at that point. You just have to understand what's going on. You have to look at it and say, what is the nature of this injury that I just experienced? And one of the analogies that I remember, one of the first times I went to a program for the BKs, it was in Peace Village. And Eric and Dorothy were the facilitators, and they said, someone says something terrible to you, and you say, how can they say that to me? And becomes part of your essence at that point. I have been told this terrible thing. Someone has accused me of something unfairly. Because of course it's unfair, because you hurt yourself, it's unfair. So you immediately it's unfair. But what happens? That person that told you that brother, sister, friend, left. And a week later, you're remembering this incident. So the dagger with which you were stabbed once, you hold in your hand, and a week later, you stab yourself again with it. The person that stabbed you originally may not even remember they insulted you, but you remember. And you go back, you remember, and you go back and relive the incident. That's why it's very dangerous to just react, because the minute you appropriate the reaction, the injustice, the minute you make it your own, then the tool is in your hands. And if you're not careful, you can, I mean, there are people that haven't talked to relatives for a lifetime because they said something to them once. And I know this for a fact, and it's stuff that doesn't seem to make any sense. But such is the nature of our ego, that when we envelop it in a particular situation that's negative, it does things to us repeatedly. So you first have to examine what exactly is the injury. You have to look at it. Before you say it's unfair, it's unjust, examine what it is they're saying. What is the nature of the insult? You first have to take a look and say, okay, whatever they said, and you have to be very objective about this. Is there any truth in it? Did I in fact provoke this? Was there anything I did that could have been misinterpreted? So that's the first thing you have to look at. You have to look at yourself and say, what did I do to provoke this? Not how can they do that to me? I haven't done anything. But you have to have a certain level of humility and say, all right, I'm not perfect. Maybe I did something or say something that I didn't understand its impact. So you first look at that and you say, okay, what was that? And you have to be humble, which is the only way you're going to be honest, because you can't be honest without some level of humility. And you say, okay, maybe what I said wasn't appropriate. Maybe that was not a good thing to do. And so you actually examine yourself. Secondly, you have to think about the person who's saying this to you. What is their situation? I mean, are they in distress? Are they saying this because they actually have this opinion about me, or is it something that has to do with their situation that's been triggered? You have to look at that. If the person is hurting you, is someone that you know, is someone that means something to you, then you should be able to at least take a look at their situation and figure out, does that mean that they're in distress? And the last part of this examination is, what is the context of this exchange? Something happening outside of us that I'm not really taking into account. So when you do this, generally speaking, in these situations, there's a little bit of everything. It's a proportion of one of these three things. But when you do this, by the end or by the middle of this kind of examination, you're already letting go of the hurt, letting go of the initial insult. Now, this is not to say that when someone says something hurtful to you that you're supposed to ignore it. I mean, it's hurtful for a reason. There's something that happened. They said something about you. They said something cruel or something unfair or unjust. So it's not like we can ignore and say, no, well, that person is crazy. I'm a perfect person. I've never done anything wrong. So like they can't be right. So you have to come into it with a perspective. Okay, what exactly happened? What is going on? What is the nature of this exchange? And how did it make them react? How did I help this? What was the context? So if you do that, you're no longer on the side of the hurt. You're already moving yourself away from the pain, and you're saying, okay, something's going on here. There's a dynamic going on here that I need to look at. And I think that is the first step to kind of letting go of something that might end up making you feel worse than the initial injury that you experienced. So that is basically the critical thing. Examine, clean, find out what the injury is, clean it out, take it out. Look at it. Look at the splinter. Look at the shard. Look at this bloody shard that you're looking at. Take it out of yourself. Take it out of your psyche. Because while it's in there, it's toxic. If you leave that inside, it's toxic. It continues to create damage to you. Just like an injury, a physical injury, if you have a glass shard, if you have a steel splinter inside of you and you don't take it out, it's going to continue to create damage. It's going to continue to constantly hurt you and continue to traumatize your tissue. Same thing when someone says something to you, you have to take it out. You can't leave it inside. Leaving it inside is appropriating it, is owning it. And that's something you really don't want to do. And we don't own it because we believe it's true. We own it because we believe that those people are unfair. And we take that as a proof of their inequity. So we take this insult to us as a proof of their inequity. And we hold on to it because we're going to get even. You got to get rid of the shard. Got to get rid of the splinter. The more it stays inside you, the more damage it does. To the point where at some point it makes an infection, and which requires very serious treatment. So you have to take out, get rid of it, extirpate it from your psyche. Because as long as it's inside of you, and of course these are emotional things, these are psychological things, so they live inside of us. So it's not like, it's something that you can observe, like an injury where you can observe that there is something physical. Here, it's stuff that lives inside of us. So you have to extirpate the hurt. It's got to come out. You can't leave it in. The analogy with physical is here also very appropriate. That is what you need to that's the point you need to get to before you start healing. Now, it doesn't mean that the hurt is insignificant. It's not like we're trying to say, okay, this happened and we analyze it away and it's no longer a problem. That's not the case. We're not talking, again, about social intercourse. We're talking about people saying things that are deeply wounding. And they may be significant things that have to do with yourself and the way you act and the way you behave and the way you think and the way you treat people. So these are not things that are just, passing things. So, but you need to at least get to the point where you understand what they are. Because without that, you can't determine what you're going to do about them. So you have to clean the wound. You have to look at what is inside of you, and you have to take it out if it's there. Whatever is causing this, you have to at least remove it and look at it objectively. You can't leave it inside. So that is like the next step in the process of healing. You can't heal something if you don't know what it is. You can't heal a hurt. You can't put balm on a wound unless you know what the wound is about. I mean, it's very simple. In medicine, we all know that. We go to the drugstore. We have an irritation. We get some hydrocortisone. We have skin infection. We get some antibiotic cream. This is something we understand. So before you try to heal the wound, you first have to find out what it is. What is it that hurt? Am I doing something that really I shouldn't be doing? Is this relationship a relationship which is not really engaged properly? Am I doing, there's something happening here that's negative? Am I really that insensitive to what's going on around me that I say these things that provoke people? These are things that are not easy for you to digest. No, we think we're good people, but we are prisoners of habits. And these habits are the things that rule most of our actions. Today, when I was coming, instead of coming to the train to come to Long Island, I was thinking of coming here. My body was walking down the train to go home. I had to got to the turnstile. I said, wait a minute, I'm not going home. I'm coming up here. So we have these habits that we live by, and they're very important. I remember one day I have forgotten my PIN code for my going to go to the bank to get cash, but my fingers remembered it. So when I went to the machine, I could do it, even though I did not remember the code. This is the kind of thing. We have habits. Some of them obviously are very useful, and some of them are not. So we need to understand what the nature of the injury is that's been made to us, and understand what is that we can do to kind of heal this injury, to bring us back to some level of health. So, one, you stop. Take some sort of account of what's happening. Second, you determine what is it that's the cause of this. What's the nature of the hurt? What's the cause of the hurt? Now, again, it's very important, because until you do that, you cannot do anything to heal it. There's nothing that's going to come out of this that's going to heal it. Then we have the last step, which is the actual healing process. What do we do to make this right, to make it better? And here again, or here actually is the most relevant to the healing through peace, is because it is the finding out where the agent of healing comes from. And here, for both the physical and the psychological and emotional, I believe they come from the same source. I have a story about when I was growing up, among Puerto Ricans, there was an expression saying, that person is so sick that not even the Chinese doctor can save him. It's an interesting expression because there were no Chinese people in Puerto Rico at that time. So I'm assuming it came from Spain. But the basis of that is that the healing that was done by Chinese medicine was such that it was able to do things nobody else could do. So you have traditional medicines like Chinese medicine and traditional medicines like Ayurvedic traditions of India, where the healing process is all about taking the whatever you have in your system, your whole body, and using those tools to heal you. Not an external thing that they come and they put some balm. It's everything that they do is to promote your internal system to act more efficiently. That was the basis of almost all Oriental and Chinese and Indian traditional medicine. So in this respect, I think we're sort of in the same place. Even Western medicine, the big C, cancer, is one of these diseases which we have all kinds of invasive procedures to do it, to treat it. And now the most recent research shows that they have something that's very effective, which is to be able to teach certain cancers, and I think they've already done with certain cancers, teach the body how to recognize the cancer so the cancer can't fool it. And as soon as the body's immune system is no longer fooled by the cancer, cancer is eliminated. So it's always, what can we do to help our systems work better? The regeneration systems, the immune systems. So in terms of our own psyche, we need to have the same kind of approach. Whatever is happening, the solution to it is coming from inside. Nobody is coming from outside to make it better. You have to go into yourself. And that's where the whole notion of healing through peace, I think, really kind of comes together, is because you need to be able to have the presence of mind to look at this injury, to look at this wound that's opened up inside of you, that and be able to see what is it that I have inside of me that's going to help me deal with this, change it, or to deal with it. Whether it be change the way I am, learn to forgive someone, all of these things come internally. Unfortunately, in modern society, we've come to the conclusion, which is Western medicine embodied, is that there is got to be some traumatic intervention in particularly Western medicine, which is what's happening in the West, obviously, which I make the reference between Western medicine and Eastern traditional medicine. In this country, we have, in this West, we have the advent of psychotherapy, that there is an external force that's actually going to help you heal the wounds of your childhood and your bad experience with your parents or some other relatives, or heal the wounds with your inability to communicate and deal with other people. Psychology has become the tool, like everything else in Western medicine, for external intervention. Now, I think that psychology can help, but that's because we have not been able to remove ourselves from the situations that are causing us this trauma and begin to look at them objectively and do something about us to change their lives. That is really the critical thing. In the society we live in, we look for a therapist to help us walk through our lives. Now, I'm not particularly into therapy. I don't really, it's not something that I relate to, but I know for some people it's very critical because they're in situations not of their own making, that they need to have some sort of support because otherwise they cannot get through. But external intervention only does one thing. It helps us understand. It helps us look at what the situation is. It helps us analyze the nature of the trauma that we're experiencing psychologically. But I really feel that psychology, psychotherapy, that's when it's done properly, that's the maximum they can do. They can just understand and analyze what the problem is. What's the nature of the trauma that you're facing from your childhood, from your relationships, whatever, that you need to get by. The next step is the healing step. And there, I don't believe psychology really has a lot of tools. Their tools are basically for you to understand, and the psychology structure assumes that you will be able, while understanding it, to undo or reverse the process. Unfortunately, that's not that common because people are in therapy all their lives. They're constantly going back because they can't really solve the problem. They can only understand it. That's with good psychology. Bad psychology, things are just made worse. But with good therapy, will just be able to help you understand what the issues are. That doesn't help you solve them. Solving them can only come from inside, from your own understanding of the problem and what you're going to do to change it. And this is where all the values that we focus on here, I think, really become very critical. First, you have to have some sort of faith that you're able to make a difference in your own life or in the life of other people. You have to have some sort of faith that that's possibility. Without that, you're starting with no tools whatsoever. One is have faith. And when you're dealing with things about yourself, you need to be able to have some level of consideration, respect, love for yourself. Because if what you hear, what you've understood to be is, I do these things and they're not good, I'm a bad person by doing them, then unless you have faith that you can make a change, you're basically stuck in the one place, understanding it. You have to be able to say, okay, I have faith. I have some level of faith in myself, some level of faith in my the people that I deal with, other people, and ultimately to have faith in God. These are the tools for healing through peace. You have to start with faith. It's very, very critical. Without it, you really cannot begin to the process of healing. And with that, then you begin to look at all the other aspects of the healing process. And you begin to acquire tools. You have to learn to forgive yourself for doing things that you shouldn't have done. You have to learn to forgive others. You have to have tools for understanding how you can change what you do that is making your life more difficult or making somebody else's life more difficult. You need to be able to look at all the avenues for you to change and for you to make the situation better. And like in all types of healing, there is no there's no miracle cures. Nothing goes away by itself. It requires effort and time. But unless you become focused on making this change in yourself that's creating the problem that you're dealing with the relationship, with your memory of your past existence, childhood. I mean, I know people who are still struggling with issues of when they were a child. They can't get past them. It still becomes something that's completely impossible for them to get over. The only way you do that is through some level of faith. And these are the critical tools for you to be able to work this out. Faith in yourself, faith in the family, the community that you're part of, and faith in that there is powers out there that will make it possible for you to transcend the strictures that you're currently facing. Without that, you just have despair, and that doesn't take you anywhere. That just keeps you in a place of injury. So the healing through peace is when you stop and take a look at what's going on and go into yourself and say, okay, what is it that I can do? Not what can someone else can do. What that is that I need to do to make this change and be able to get past this particular moment, circumstance, relationship. Without that kind of focus, you're basically staying in the same place, suffering the same injury, and not being able to pull out of the kind of cycle that it represents. So that to me is where the ultimate healing through peace comes in, is when you're actually have stopped and you're looking at what options you have to move forward. But you can't do that if you're constantly focused on the pain, on the sorrow of yourself or others, and not really looking at this objectively and trying to just extirpate this lesion that you have that needs to be cleaned and needs to be taken out, and you need to begin to heal it. Now, often, if you stop doing things, you can heal. So someone is said something about you that was bad, and you think about it all the time, so you stop thinking about it. You stop taking into yourself this negativity, just leaving it alone, and it heals on its own. But often we don't do that. We continue to remember the hurt, and we don't leave it be. That's actually the most typical example of how we can change. Just leave it be. Let it go. That's the first part of healing yourself through peace. Just letting the things go, not bringing them back. So this is the kind of trinity or trimurti of healing. You first stop, find out what's going on. Second, pull out the injury, identify it, stop it from bleeding, and then you start healing it. And the only healing that happens both in the body and in the mind and in the psyche and in the soul comes from within, comes from your own body, comes from your own emotions, comes from your own spiritual consciousness. The healing from the outside is just tools that help you. The real healing happens from inside. And that's the case, again, both in material world, medicine, it's the case in the world that we live in with our emotions and thoughts and feelings. Oh, wow. It took for a long time. I'm sorry. Sure. We look inward. To find a place of stillness inside of us. Place that doesn't move. The seat. And we collapse our senses into that place. It's a place of stillness, of peace. Place where we come to let ourselves be. To let go. All these things that surround us and accost us. A refuge. A respite. Place that protects us from all these external agitations. Place that we go to. when we're traumatized, upset. Cause we know that there, all of these external things fall away. We try to hold on to that place. That stillness. As we shake ourselves free. From the demands of the world. Place we return to every time. Find same solace. Place of our true being. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, and thank you, Brother Tony, guiding us. We'll try not to do harm, put a stop where it needs to be. And for all of you still with us online, hope you've enjoyed and hope to see you here next week and hope we have a little better weather. So thanks for those who've participated. Thanks for those who've talked, and Om Shanti. See you next week.